Okay, so yeah, so that's recording now. And and we'll get started here. So thank you guys for coming out. This is Nocode Lisboa. This is a group that I started like 3 years ago. And at the time, none of this AI stuff existed. This was just like, my MO was I really like no code. I really like just lowering the bar for who can write software. To me, that is just like a really cool goal. When people at the edges who are not software developers by nature can create software, it opens up a lot of incredible possibilities. And I think we're going to see, like I just made this my first slide here. I really think that this stuff now, it's approaching the point where it's possible for anyone to use it. I think it's still a little technical, and that's kind of the chasm that I hope to get you guys over in this talk. But yeah, I think we're looking at like potentially the greatest wealth unlock since the internet, and maybe more with this stuff. I mean, it really is that powerful. This was in an annual review that I just wrote up on our site, and I said, AI builder tools are not just force multipliers for amplifying professional developers. This was the epiphany I had. They are a democratizing force for lowering the barriers for who can write software. And I really think that's at the heart of what I'm trying to do tonight, is really like help people who are on the fence or interested or maybe overwhelmed or thinking they can't do this, and give you the confidence to see that it is totally within your reach to do this. So I want to start with a little story. So I'm a guitar player. I played guitar since 1991. This was my guitar teacher, Frank Dana, and he understood something that none of my other music instructors understood. Because I had tried to learn violin, I had tried to learn piano, and we had music in our family. Like my grandfather was an incredible pianist, so it was like in our blood, and yet I failed at violin and I failed at the piano because my instructors in those things thought that it was, sorry, I want to turn this down just a tiny bit. It's kind of ringing. I'm just going to say. Yeah, I think that'll be a little better. Okay, cool. So he understood something that they did not, which is like the violin teacher before we ever could play a song, we spent like hours of these uncomfortable finger positionings and learning scales and notes and how to read music and all this crap that I didn't care about. And eventually I gave up on it. And same thing with piano. It's like all the just nonsense we had to get through. And then day one, Frank said, well, what song do you want to play? And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I want to play this White Lion song. And he's like, great. And so lesson by lesson, he stacked those wins and built up to the point where, I was just like super motivated. I'd go home and I'd show my friends like 4 bars of this song and they'd be blown away. And that gave me the motivation to come back next time. Like, what can we learn? What can we learn? So he just inverted it and he put the song ahead of everything. And to me, that's kind of, here's a picture of scrawny 14-year-old Sean with a guitar. It just made it very clear to me that like that's the way to teach this stuff. It's not about like having to learn all the theory up front before you can ever do anything useful. Let's just dive right in and learn a song. So that's kind of the approach that I'm going to take with this. And if it seems like cart before the horse and we're just kind of doing stuff that you don't understand, trust the process, trust that we're going to get around to explaining it, and this will start to make sense eventually. So this I just grabbed right out of the meetup. This is kind of the agenda at a high level. What we're going to do is we're going to use this tool called bolt.new. These guys just raised $105 million in their Series A. So yeah, they're on fire. I demoed this tool in November, but they have really just skyrocketed. I forget what ARR they're doing, but they're doing an insane amount of revenue. They have, I think, the best like prototyping tool that's out there. So we're going to look at that first, and we're going to kind of paint in broad strokes. I call it. It's definitely not as granular as you can get from stuff like Cursor and Windsurf, but this is the fastest way to get something, I think, prototyped. We're going to deploy that to Netlify, and then we're going to bring the code into GitHub, pull it down to our laptop for local development, and then we'll use Cursor and Windsurf to extend it. I'm going to go over this idea. This is another epiphany I've had through working with this stuff, is that really thinking of like Claude as your CTO. Like think about these tools almost as team members. And the way you interact with them is almost the same way, like you're the product manager. You've got a goal, you're trying to get this thing built. You know what you want, but now you have to interact with your designer and your developer and your CTO and coordinate these people. And really, if you think of them that way, with Claude as your CTO, with Cursor, Windsurf as your developers, V0 as your designer, it really starts to shape, you talk to them the way you would to those roles, and it's super useful. And then you have them document things for each other. So I'll ask Claude. I'll say, hey, you're my CTO, and our developer's name is Cursor, and I want you to write high-level spec architecturally what we need here, how this is going to be organized, what we're doing, and then give these coding guidelines to our developer. And it'll write it up as if it's writing it for a developer, and then you put that in the source, like in the actual source of the project in a guidance folder, and then that becomes how we pass instructions back and forth. And so I'll show you some hacks around with Cursor that you can do to make it even go better. But yeah, so that's kind of the high-level agenda here. The tools, someone asked me what the tools are that we're going to be using. So Bolt we'll start out with. GitHub is for source control. Netlify is for deployment. Cursor and Windsurf are basically forks of VS Code, which is an IDE, an integrated development environment. So that's what we use. It's kind of our canvas, our how we work locally. V0 is another thing like Bolt, only it's good for designing screens. And then Supabase, if we get there and are able to put a database behind this, then that's the database that I use. They now have nice integration with Bolt. Claude, just for general purpose questions. And then OpenAI, just another, ChatGPT is another angle on things. So, all right, and before we get started, I guess this is the last thing I want to say. There's this guy, does anyone know Derek Sivers? Anyone? This is he's one of my heroes. I followed this guy for probably 20 years. Really neat guy, and he had this post a long time ago called "There's No Speed Limit." And ironically, he's musical as well, and he's talking about his music, his jazz teacher, Kimo Williams. But it's this idea that we kind of are indoctrinated about how fast we can go with things, and as soon as we kind of set that aside, once someone can break the 4-minute mile, then everyone can break the 4-minute mile. So it's just we've imposed all these kind of artificial constrictions on ourselves about what's possible. And so just suspend and realize there's no speed limit. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's the QR again for the Telegram if you want to join. I'll leave it up at the very end if you want to be part of the group. I see a lot of people have already jumped in. And the last thing before we get started is this is the thing that I started, the sponsor of this meeting, Stone Soup. It's the protocol. If you use the website, it's the thing that powers our website. It also powers now 351 Startups is using it. Polylog, Lightning Talks uses it. Hatch. I built 2 movements, Problematic and Open Startup, that are using it. So it's really just a way of organizing communities, and it all rolls up under one universe. I can go into what all it does, but it's a really powerful platform if you have a community that is outcome driven and you want to align people around outcomes. It uses crazy game theory and whatnot. So, and one of the things you get by it, if you haven't created a profile, if you came through the meetup, you should really go to nocodelisboa.com and create yourself a profile because for a lot of reasons, but one of them being it will connect you. It will cross-connect you with people in the local Lisbon ecosystem based on what you need and what you have to bring to the table. And so it organizes connections based on who you can help and who can help you. And it's I think we have 500 plus people now in Lisbon using this, and the ones that have taken the time to fill out the little chat bot and explain their situation, it does some really calibrated intros. I won't read them, but it'll be given that you know this and you're struggling with that, you should talk to so-and-so because blah, blah, blah. It's that level of granularity. So, okay. So with all that said, what do you guys want to build tonight? This is total improv. Just throw out ideas. If anyone has an app they've been itching to build, what we're going to do is we're actually going to build it, get as far as we can, and then we're going to throw it into this open startup community. We'll just take the code and anyone that wants to work on it. I think 2 Saturdays from now, we have a group coming out here to this same space, and if it makes sense, we'll try and take it forward. So yeah, we did Tinder for dogs last time was what people wanted to build, and we built it. It was kind of interesting.
How about a task manager?
A task manager.
Kanban style, to do.
Yeah.
In progress, complete.
Yeah. Yeah. Any specific theme or bent? There's a lot of them out there.
No, there's a million of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's tough to beat Trello in my book, but okay, well, potentially. That's interesting.
Is not for find the best place for working in a bar in Lisbon, around Lisbon, with the Wi-Fi speed daily, the check of the Wi-Fi map, update the Wi-Fi for all the community.
Yep. Do you have in mind sources of that data?
For the Wi-Fi speed,
Yeah.
it's probably in the community part.
Sorry?
The community. I can just do the speed test inside the app probably.
Oh, okay, so no external data source for that, because I know there's one called Wi-Fi. Let's
Or,
just look
yeah,
at
or
something.
external data as this.
Wi-
Just try to
Wi-Fi
develop it in this
maps.
day. Why?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think what we could build that would be super compelling. If this data already exists, then that's interesting. Crowdsourced. Let's see.
Also, how about your personal financial manager? I mean, how you can manage your expenses, to write it down every day. You spend something in a coffee shop, you spend in a grocery. So yeah.
Yep.
Just to manage your personal finances.
Yep. Another possibility. Let's see here. So I know these guys have Wi-Fi data, speeds and whatnot. I wonder if they have an API. Let's do this. I'm guessing they're probably not going to expose their data because that's probably their main secret there. So, okay, so that's a potential finance manager to-do app. I think they're all decent ideas. Yeah.
A bike app, like Jira bikes are not in Lisbon.
I'm sorry. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, a bike app where you can like it's actually working.
Did you say bank or bake?
Bike.
Bike.
Like
Okay.
in Lisbon, there are Jira bikes, so there are open bikes, but the app is not working, so that's working.
Okay. Let's do this. I think for the sake of demonstrating just the power of this thing and how fast you can get something up, let's do the to-do app, and we'll just generate the most basic vanilla simple one just to show you how quickly it can do that. But then we can get crazy with it and we'll, I don't know, come up with some more fancy version that we want to do. Okay, so let's do this. So I'm going to open Bolt. It's bolt.new. And it asks the same questions. I'm currently paying for the first tier of it, which gets you 10 million daily tokens, and there's zero chance we're going to blow through that many on this. So what I like to do, I'm going to use this tool. It's called Talktastic. This has totally changed the game for me. What this is it's a dictation tool that's free right now for Mac, and it both transcribes what you're saying and it does a good job of capturing it, but then it takes a second step and it actually like polishes it to diamond form, which is great for dealing with these prompts. So it's talktastic.com. So we're going to use that, and I'm just going to kind of talk through some requirements and get like a kind of high level picture here, and you'll watch what it does to my speech. So, okay, I want to build a to-do management app. It should log to-dos, the completion of to-do items. It should give us the ability to see progress and maybe see it by a calendar view. And what I would like you to do is please develop a plan for doing this. Don't write any code yet, but give me the data model, give me a suggested roadmap of how you intend to build the screens for this, and lay that out as basically an implementation plan as a next step. So I don't know if you can see, it just translated that verbatim, and right now it's making it better. And so here's the better version. And then, okay, so I'll just kind of read it. I don't know how much. Yeah, I'll just kind of read through it. So I need to build a to-do management application with the following core requirements: to-do item logging, completion tracking, progress visualization, calendar view integration. Before proceeding with implementation, I'm looking for a comprehensive data model design, screen architecture roadmap, detailed implementation plan. Please provide blah, blah, blah. I put two of them in there, so hold on. Okay, so There we go. Okay, and then Bolt has this really cool thing. Let's see what this looks like before we do it. They have this thing like enhance prompt where it will then go and try to do its thing to it to make it more granular and detailed. So let's see if this is worth doing. Just reading through it. Implementation plan for. Cool. And then, all right, so I'm going to use their prompt and I'm going to say as a last instruction, don't write any code yet. And the reason for doing this, it uses more tokens, but it actually gets you a better result. For the same reason I think that like the chain of thought reasoning stuff, instead of just like cowboy coding it and saying, go build this on the first shot, by doing it this way and reviewing it, like you have the chance to fix it if it doesn't quite do what you wanted it to do. Because the real like rub with these things is once they go down a rabbit hole, it's harder to back out. So you really want to like measure twice, cut once type of thing. So to the extent you can fix issues before it starts coding, this is a good thing. So I'm going to tell it not to start any code. Let's see what it comes back with. And you notice we haven't specified like a language or a framework or anything. So it'll be interesting to see what it picks. And this is something where if we were doing this as a more long-term project, we probably wouldn't go right to Bolt. We would actually go to Claude and we tell it our long-term goals and our constraints and our requirements, where we want to host it, maybe what our budget is, those types of things. And we let it come back and give us a detailed architectural recommendation. Okay, so it came back. It's proposing the data model here. And I'm not going to go through in detail and review all these, but I mean, it looks like it's got what we need in terms of the tables to do that basic stuff. It's got the file system. Or no, this is the navigation. Let's see. Interesting. Key screens. So it's laid this out, which is a pretty detailed plan, which is good. And it's phased it out by core functionality, enhanced features, advanced features, API endpoints. So this is pretty comprehensive. All right, so this is plenty comprehensive. So would you like me to proceed? And I'm just going to say, yes, please begin. Please being. No, please begin. Okay, so you see it slides over, it pops open a coding window, and it's now writing this stuff up. And this is doing, I don't know, Mark, what would you say? Like, how long, if you were a developer, how long would this take to start to do what it's doing right now?
I mean, just the implementation plan would take several days of more than one person going back and forth and specking it all out.
Yeah.
And then writing the general structure would take several more days.
Yeah.
It's doing it within a minute.
Yep.
If you specify it in the unit testing, you have, testing framework down there.
So there we go. There's our basic to-do manager. So it's got tasks, calendar. It looks like it hasn't built out these other things. So it just started with the tasks. Let's see, can we complete it? Yes, we can. It's got tags. That's interesting. We didn't even ask for that, but that's kind of cool. Dates, priority. So cool. This is a great start. Add a new task. Let's see if we can add one. We can. So not bad for the first thing it built. So let's see what it says over here. Would you like me to implement any specific feature next? Yeah, let's just say, sure. Let's see. Yes, can you implement the calendar view next?
Does it work only with React?
No, so you can, I think Bolt works with Next.js, Node.js, React. I don't know all the frameworks. Python maybe. You'd have to check that. I don't know. I think it has like it tends to gravitate to certain ones if you don't specify, so it doesn't surprise me. But yeah, sorry, was another question?
As I was saying, it does a bunch of Swell, it does a whole bunch of frameworks.
Yeah.
Next.js, but React is the most popular one.
I'm gonna open just see if we can find what else it does while this is doing it. Yeah, so down here you can see the ones that it supports: Astro, Vite, Next.js, NativeScript, Nuxt, Slide Dev, Vue, Quick, Angular, React, TypeScript, blah 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 blah. So yeah, so lots of stuff. And what's cool now is they made it. I'll just show you this real quick. So it now supports this idea of these. Where is it? Knowledge. Yeah, so you can give it this, you can give it like a system prompt that it'll keep in the background. It's the same thing if like cursor rules, if you know that, but you can basically give it instructions that it's just always going to reference before it does anything. So this one, it looks like I had it in there from the previous one. So this told it to use Tailwind CSS, React, Lucid, blah, 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 all this other stuff. So maybe that's why it defaulted to that this time. Okay, let's see what it did. So, yeah, so it's got our calendar view, complete project proposal. Of note right now, there is no database behind this. And so it's using dummy data and it doesn't persist if you see like that task we added isn't there. But we can tell it, we can just say, please switch to local storage so that data persists between test iterations. And what this basically means is it still doesn't have a database behind it, but it's going to let you store that data in the browser, and that will make it so as we add stuff, it'll retain it in between iterations here, which is not essential, but kind of a nice feature. Okay, so we'll just, again, add new task. And then in theory, when we do our next feature, that should still be there. And cool. All right, so none of this other stuff is built yet, so we can have it built out. Let's see what it says here. Development, add new task, marks complete. What did it say back here? Yeah, let's just, I'd say go down the navigation here and have it do the next thing. So can you build out the next feature of categories per the navigation? I'll say, yeah. Any questions so far while it's doing its thing?
Is it injected immediately in the code? Or do you have something to glue it from the reply to the code?
Not sure I understand. It's changing the code right now as we speak. So this is the code that's running, and then it switches to preview once it's finished its changes. So yeah, it's making changes on the fly right now and then running that code on the server.
Directly.
Yeah.
And which software you are now?
This is Bolt.
Bolt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any ways to customize the front end and the design?
To automate?
Customize, like if you want
To make.
custom front end, custom design?
Yeah. Like, what do you mean? So to design a different look?
Yeah, if you want to like, I don't know, put a special logo, change the layout.
Yeah, totally. Let's go make a logo while it's doing its thing here. So I use this thing called Looka, which is really good. So what do we want to call this thing? If we need a name too, I've got one that'll just even come up with a name. Let's use this name licks thing. So let's do this. To-do list manager, and I'm gonna say, how do we make this? What's gonna be the niche we want to do with this? I don't know. For nomads, let's say. It's still got the Tinder for dogs in there. That's a to-do list manager for dogs. Okay, let's do that. Actually, no, I don't know what that's gonna do. No, let's say a sleek to-do list manager for people frequently changing locations. Wander task, that's kind of cool. Wander list, I think, is already a thing. Nomad list is definitely a thing. Yeah, this is a super cool tool. It just like kind of iterates. You can go in here. I like this one, so let's just play with this. Look at. Let's just grab this for this. I don't know. All right, we'll go back here and we'll say, can you change the name from Taskmaster to, what did we say, Wanderlist?
Yes.
To Wanderlist and use the logo provided. I guess it's worth noting, like, so it shows you your token count. So we're at 9.8 million daily tokens remaining. So we've used 200,000 tokens just for what it's worth. Yeah.
Can you mention, please, if you remember the subscription fees of those tools?
Yeah, this
while you're using them.
Sure. Yeah, this one's $20 a month. I can probably do it actually. I'll tell you what I know by heart. So $20 a month for Bolt. GitHub's free. Netlify, it's based on your hosting. Cursor's $20 a month. Windsurf is $15 a month. vZero I don't pay for. I'm not sure, like the free version's adequate for what I use. Superbase depends on what you're running. So I'm running 2 different databases there now, and I think it's $30 a month. Claude I pay for is $20 a month, and OpenAI is $20 a month. So
adds up like
death by 1,000 paper cuts. Yeah, it definitely starts to add up, and your credit card statement looks like 100 little charges.
There's cheaper alternatives of a lot of those things listed on there, though.
Yeah. There's also open source stuff. Like to me, I have a Trello card right now for us, which is I called it the Great SaaS Purge. I just want to go through and switch. There's so many different open source alternatives to all this stuff that we can get onto. The vector store stuff. So we have a RAG app that uses Superbase, the embeddings, and there's like Qdrant, I think is how you pronounce it, which is apparently like the leader in the open source realm. So we can just cut over to that, but it's a matter of taking the time to do it. So, yeah. Does everyone know open source, by the way? Did I just gloss over that, or do y'all know what open source refers to? Like, so these tools that we're using, Bolt, this is a commercial SaaS product. So we don't actually have access to their source code, but there are tools out there that you can actually download and run on your own server and not have to pay. I mean, you have to host the server, but you don't have to pay the SaaS company. Okay, so we have our first error. This is just part of the game. Let's see what it says. So first thing we're gonna do, show problem. So let's look at it. Check square is not defined at blah, blah, blah. So let's just copy this. And they have a button, attempt to fix, which like 90% of the time is fine. But again, if we want to play it like more conservative, I would say, can you explain this issue? And don't write any code yet to solve it yet. And then I just literally pasted the error into it. Okay, so it says error occurred because we removed check square import from the Lucid React icons, but it's still being used. Blah, blah, blah. So it knows how to fix it. And I'm just going to say, yes, please fix. Okay, so it's working, just like that. And the question should be like, well, why didn't it just do that if it knew how to fix it? So this is where we get into, there's a type of tool called agentic AI, where like Devin is like this, where it will literally just iterate and it'll say, what do I need to do? There's a problem. Oh, let's check the possible causes. Go do those things. Is there still a problem? Yes, there is. What else is, so it'll sit there and iterate and loop until it fixes it. These tools do not work that way. Actually, Replit did, and it burned through all of the tokens that I had. I went to like get coffee and came back, and it was just spinning and it gone down some crazy rabbit hole trying to fix stuff. So I actually prefer that it doesn't. But yeah, you can see it just fixed the issue right there. So okay, so let's see if we can add a category. We'll call it, I don't know, accommodations. That's how you spell accommodations. There we go. Okay, view tasks, add a new task, find Airbnb for Lisbon. Oh, we gotta do find here. No category, add. Okay, so we still need to apparently make that work.
Try to click view all tasks.
Yeah, there we go. Find Airbnb. Okay, so it was there, it just wasn't displaying. So basically we would have to go and say, when you're coming from categories, make sure, like there's some debugging in terms of how I did it to make it work. But I think for the purposes of demonstrating that, like, we, in relatively short order, we can kind of just talk through this thing and build it out and make the features that we want. Is there any features you guys want to see or stuff you want to try? I think we could try the database, wiring it up. Yeah.
Can you test the reasonability by asking it to build a dashboard on this task and ask it to show some analysis on like how many tasks you have per week and so on?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So do we want that under maybe, so let's say under settings, can you have a dashboard, like show metrics of usage, something like that? Okay. Okay, can you add a feature under the settings tab in navigation that displays a dashboard of usage and show various metrics like task completions by week, number of tasks by category, and I don't know, busiest day of the week? Is anyone getting ideas of what they want to build for themselves? Go ahead.
Can we connect our existing code base with this tool and ask to do something for us?
Your existing code base?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I've never uploaded new code to it. You certainly can do that with Cursor. I don't know if you can do that with Bolt. Do you know, Mark?
There's a tool called Git Ingest that you can put a GitHub repo link into, and that'll give you relevant features of that repo, such as the file structure and things like that. And while that doesn't completely connect to something like Bolt, that gives you requisite information that you can plug into something like this.
Nice. Well, this thing, I'll just show this feature, which is super cool. So let's find a GitHub repo. Just anything. Let's see. I don't know. Just another to-do list app. Node.js. Okay, sure. This looks good. So we can literally just take that URL of this project and paste it into here. Take away the HTTPS part. And it's importing that GitHub repo into Bolt. So you can do that for any GitHub repo, just one step like that. Just prepend bolt.new to that GitHub repo URL. So I'm not gonna go through that project because then we really will eat through the tokens quickly, but that's a cool trick. Okay, so on the dashboard, let's see what it came up with. Created a comprehensive metrics dashboard, blah, blah, blah. Let's look at it. Okay, pretty cool. Total task, completion rate. I mean, that's pretty damn slick with one prompt. We didn't even give it a lot of direction there. I mean, would you agree? Yeah.
Can we add some, I don't know, notification, or does it have already on the calendar?
Notifications of like a new task. So this, I don't think it's collaborative yet. Are you thinking like if someone else added a task to your?
Like it's reminder basically.
Oh, reminder.
10 minutes
Yeah.
before it starts.
Sure, yeah. So it doesn't have the concept of cron. Like there is no, one of the thing about this, it's really just like quick and dirty prototyping. There's no database, there's no like cron job running in the background that would do that.
On your other tools that you're gonna use, you will polish it, you mean? Or?
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea with when we bring it down, we put it in cursor, then we can build out stuff like that. Although I'm curious, I've never tried to add cron at this level. We can say, can you add the concept of reminders that occur like in the browser when certain tasks become due by date? And I'll say, what are those called, like toast? The little toast notification reminders? Yeah, let's see if it can build that. I don't know. I'm impressed by that dashboard. That was pretty slick. So I have not actually tried the Superbase integration, and I'm curious if we can, like, how easy it is to wire this thing up to the database. So maybe we do that next. There's obviously a lot more functionality that could be built out here. Okay, so here's what it came up with. Enable notifications. Doesn't really do anything. Okay, so it's a start. I think there's probably some work to do there. But yeah. Okay, well, let's do this then. Let's see if we can wire this to an actual database. And this is brand new territory. I've actually never used this feature yet, so I'm super curious. But let's say connect to Superbase. Superbase create database. Yep. So I already connected it to my account. It's just one of those OAuth screens where you're already logged into Superbase and you say yes, connect, and it gives it all the privileges. And so it's now creating a new database, a new project within the team that I authorized it to work on. And I think it's going to just take that data model that we had and actually go generate it. This will be interesting. Who knew that code writing could be so suspenseful? Maybe just like quick audience poll is like, what's your motivation with this stuff? Like, why did you come here tonight? Maybe just by group, like internal tools, like people who are maybe interested in making tools to help at their work versus like entrepreneurs, Any, or just some other reason? I don't know. Like, why did y'all come here?
Product validation.
What is it?
Product validation.
Product
You
validation.
have some idea.
Yep.
You can realize you can develop it easily. I don't know, to send maybe to potential customers to show that some use cases to check out how they interact with something you created.
Cool.
I don't know.
So, like, from an entrepreneurial perspective, like you have an idea for a startup and you just want to see if you can make something and sell it? Cool. Cool, cool.
In my case, I was never good at coding. I put some time, like 6 months, maybe 20 years ago. I didn't get anything out of that, so I kind of hated that.
Mm-hmm.
But with these tools coming up, and I've attended some no-code stuff, but at the end, I didn't get that much out of them. But this looks like interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a coder 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So way back in the day, I am terrible. I actually was never really a good developer, even at the time. I don't know how it even worked, but I was able to build, commerce applications somehow, just muddling through them. But I was terrible. But I do understand the concepts. Bubble, I became quite proficient at. I used a lot of no-code tools, and that was kind of the genesis of this group. Is I was learning Bubble pretty deeply, and so I wanted to teach it. But in my opinion, these things are rapidly leapfrogging where you don't even need the no-code anymore. I think this is the new interface. And unless tools like Bubble really get their act together and come up with the equivalent of this, I mean, the ultimate would be if this thing generated a beautiful app like this, and then I could go change it in Bubble visually, then that would be amazing. But I think this trumps the visual creation, because there's still quite a bit of work to create a Bubble app. We were talking about it, where's JP? We were talking about it before. It's pretty involved. It's a steep learning curve, and you kind of not just to learn it, but then also when you go to build an app, there's a lot to do to make it work. Whereas you saw what we've done even just in the 25 minutes that we've been here. Yeah. So, okay, so let's see what it came up with. Yeah.
Can you ask to provide fairly bigger fonts?
Bigger fonts?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Can you make the fonts slightly bigger?
Oh, look, there are notifications. You asked before. Notification, right?
Yeah, it's there. It's there.
Up.
Yeah. Let's see. It says could not take. Okay, so before we do that, let's look at Superbase. Okay, so it's created this. This is the new one. And Superbase has a bit of a lag time when it sets up, so I'm guessing that's what's happening right now. It looks like it's there, though. Let's
Still
see.
running on the top corner.
Still running?
Still running, yeah.
Where do you? Oh, here.
Yeah.
Project status. Okay, cool.
Is it secure, right?
Secure. Yeah, it's using authentication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about the tools like this Superbase? Is creating the database needed for that application that you already built at the moment?
Yeah, so we have the data model, and it's just faking it. It's basically using a local version of it, and it's browser storage. So it's not really like a server application where you could go back to this from a different browser and log in and have authentication.
No, you want to do that.
Yeah. But I've never used this tool. This integration with Superbase is pretty recent. I believe about a month or two old.
Is that the only DB integration Bolt has?
I think so, direct, yeah. Yeah, which if we're in Cursor, you basically just say use whatever you want. It's done? Perfect. Okay, so we'll go back to Bull and we'll see, before we do the font thing, let's say, can you try Superbase again? I think it's finished. Okay, I'll help you migrate the application to use Superbase. Migrating the data schema. And we can even go and see if it's changing the tables.
Finally, who is owning the creation?
Who is owning it?
Yes.
Not Bolt. I don't know. This is just the IDE.
This is
So, yeah.
good.
Yep. Okay. Review the proposed changes and apply them. So, okay, so here's where I'm not going to read all this, but this is what it's intending to do. I'm just going to say go for it. And let's see. Has not been applied. Potential problem. Superbase failed to run SQL. Categories do not exist. I'm just going to do the quick attempt to fix. And I think this is where maybe people will get, like, you run into a couple of these walls and you get frustrated. I've found that it's literally just a matter of being patient and pasting the errors and explaining what you want. And you can even say sometimes, like, try a different way or take your time. It's really weird. Like, you can just kind of subtly give it different things. If it gets stuck in a loop, you can then take this and go to Claude and say, Claude, our developer's struggling with this. Can you take a look at it? And that's where I think it really is helpful to, like, treat these almost as different teammates. Okay, apply changes. Issues. Saving categories. All right. 404. Okay, so it's almost like it's not actually talking to the database right now. See if I can copy all of these. Okay, we have a number of errors. I'll paste them. And here, can you explain the issues? And I'm just literally copy pasting these things. Okay, tables haven't been created yet.
Sean, it may have already identified this, but you may want to specify not to store in local storage and say.
Correct.
I think it already changed.
Did it?
It migrated from local storage.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, boom. It created the tables. So at least we've got categories and tasks now. Fallback. Okay, added fallback to local storage. Okay, I'm just going to ask it. Currently, I see only these tables. Are there supposed to be more? Categories and tasks. Okay, it says the schema is well structured for the current requirements, blah, blah, blah. So it just hasn't added the stuff that we're not using yet. Although calendar, I think we are using, so it should need.
Sean, I think that since now we are using Superbase,
Uh-huh.
it's required to use authentication.
Okay.
So you can add tasks and retrieve your own tasks. And since you're not logged in yet, it's not working. So perhaps asking it to implement authentication.
Okay.
Like
Okay. Can you go ahead and implement authentication with Superbase? So I think while it's doing this, one of the questions is how do you know what you don't know? Like how do you know what to ask for, right? Always. This is where I think really just getting comfortable with talking to these LLMs like they're a person and just literally being like, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me figure out what even the right questions I should be thinking about are for this thing? I do that all the time. And I'll even have it say like, I want you to ask me some questions to help me think through my own situation. So it is like having a buddy to bounce stuff off of. And yeah, I don't know. Like I think with all this stuff, just the more you talk to it, the more you start to get ideas on how to use it. So don't be afraid. Like you need to have the perfect prompt and you need to know how to do something. Really treat it like I don't know anything, and I am trying to accomplish this goal, and these are the resources I have, and like please suggest how you would go about doing that. So I saw some questions. Yeah.
Some parts, like when you're creating an app using code, some parts are easier to make than others. Like which aspects are harder to build using code? If that makes sense. So I find that the interface is quite easy to make, but then afterwards it starts to hallucinate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I said like painting in broad strokes. I like to use Bolt up front. I think it's good to get kind of the big high level pieces, and then switch into something like Cursor when you're really looking to extend the functionality and get detailed. And if you do anything sophisticated like an ORM layer instead of a database, or in between the database, that type of stuff you definitely want to be using Cursor for. So I don't know that there is like a hard and fast rule of when it makes sense to use Bolt versus Cursor, and I'm using Cursor interchangeably with things like Windsurf and other IDE tools. Yeah, I don't know the answer. I think it's more of you just muddle through it and see kind of what works. And
I mean, to answer your question earlier, I think Bolt is great for building very basic apps with very basic interfaces.
Yeah.
For example, like free tools that can track research.
Yep.
Because there's only like a singular interface that you have to use.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I built or I'm not quite done yet, but a Slack bot application that we're going to implement. It's essentially a clone of this product. So we used to have this for the Lisbon digital nomads. There's a Slack channel still in place called Lunch Roulette, and we had this running in there at one point. It was neat because every Wednesday basically would pair 6 random people up, groups of 6 people up, and send them to restaurants around Lisbon. And it was just a neat thing. Like we miss it. Like we had a deal that I negotiated where we got a free license for like 6 months, and then we never paid for it, so they took it away. And so I actually used Cursor to go create an open source clone of this product and fix some things that I thought were wrong with it, like adding the ability to specify a neighborhood, right? So so for stuff that's that sophisticated, absolutely, you wouldn't use Bolt for that. Like you're at the point where you're like doing very complex OAuth stuff, and it's got a Node.js backend and a Next.js front end management interface, and so it's just like that type of stuff is definitely too complicated for Bolt. So I agree with you. I think like basic kind of tools that people might want to create, like moving something from a Google spreadsheet into like an actual app form, definitely that type of stuff is Bolt. Yeah. Okay, so where are we at? Let's see. Okay, authentication is now complete. Let's test it. What is the example user here?
If you need to create one account.
Yeah, can you create?
The tables for the users, etc.
Let's see.
So
No.
As authentication integrated.
Create the
To create the specific tables. It's already
user. Good 7. And use a dummy password. Let's just say the password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we'll test it here. Create your account. Oops. Oh, let's see. So we're gonna sign in. Wait, test at grid sign. Show problems. Superbase request.
I think it hard coded the 12345 password
Ah,
in the app. It needs to be 8.
weak password. Interesting here. Hold on. Weak password. Password should be. Oh, interesting. Did it make that the Superbase password?
No, it made a test user,
Okay.
and it caught you put your password in as 12345. But the authentication logged in specifies that it must be 8 characters. So either tell it to update the password to something that's 8 digits, or go back to the source code or to the code.
Okay.
And just put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Can you update the password to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
Yeah. You can just talk about to the code.
You can also check on supervise if the user was created.
Okay.
On the left menu, the authentication tab.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, but this is the one that I just made. So it actually didn't create a dummy user, but that's fine. Show problems. I'm just gonna say attempt to fix. We're kind of playing it fast and loose here for just for the sake of the demonstration. Like ordinarily you'd want to probably read what is actually going on and not just fix, because I've done that in Cursor, and 9 times out of 10 it'll work, but then when it doesn't, you get into this rabbit hole and it's no good. Okay, so I fixed some of them. Let's just keep telling it to fix stuff. What I might do, because I want to get you guys out of here by 8:30, but I also want to show you the process of putting this into source control, bringing the code down, and then using a different tool. I haven't actually just started playing with Windsurf. I hear people are raving about it. It seems very similar to Cursor to me. I'm more proficient with Cursor, but we can try either one of them, whichever you guys want to see. Potential problems. Okay, so we're rapidly spinning the wrong direction here in terms of issues, but let's do this. Let's put this in source control just to show you how that works, and then pull it down. So pretend that we've now finished this out, we made it the way we want, and we're okay. Okay, let's freeze this thing. Usually you wouldn't commit a project that's broken like this. You kind of want to get it to like a semi-working state. But what I like about this, we can deploy this. We can just hit one-click deploy, and it'll go to Netlify, and then I'll just do it to show you. And so Netlify is this hosting service. I already have an account set up on there. Oh, and it's not gonna, I think,
Do you have any build issues?
yeah, it's gonna want you to fix the build issues before it'll do that.
Do you have something ready from the past experience?
I have our dog Tinder app that we built last time.
Yeah, maybe you can deploy it.
Let's see here. Okay. And so here it is. Test at oops. Test 2. Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, so notifications work. New task. Just curious if that stored that in Superbase. Cool. Yeah, so this is working with the database. So that's the new task I just added. And it's deployed on Netlify, I guess, now. Yeah. So one-click deploy. Once there's no errors, you just hit that button, and now you have a URL, and you can give this to someone, and they can start using it. So, in however long that took us, what was it, an hour to basically get to this point, you can have a little working application, and probably faster if we had just like heads down ran on it. So now let's pull this into source control, and I'll just show you a kind of a quick trick for doing that. So Bolt is affiliated with this company StackBlitz. I guess it's like their parent company, or it's what predated them. But I'm going to say open in StackBlitz because they have this really nice bridge. Bolt doesn't have GitHub integration, but StackBlitz does. And so I can just say open in StackBlitz. It's going to go through this process now, building it here. And you see they've got this, they have integration with GitHub right here. So I can just say create a repository. GitHub, configuration required. App is not installed. GitHub act. Oh, interesting. Configure app. All repositories. Yeah, so there's our Tinder for Dogs, perfect match. Update status. Proceed. And let's call this Wander Lists. Wonder if we can fix that URL. List. Private. Secret. Okay, create repository. Call this Wander List. Okay, and then let's go check GitHub. All right, and there it is. So now that we have this in GitHub, basically GitHub, for the people that don't know, or just source control in general, the way that I like to think about it, does anyone rock climb here? Like, to me, I think about it like almost like belaying and rock climbing. Like when you rock climb, you have someone basically protecting you, and as you climb, you plant protection, and the higher you go, you can only fall as far as, you know, the height above your last protection. So if you climb a foot, you can only fall 2 feet. And the way I think about source control is kind of the same way. It's like every time you do a commit, it's like planting one of those little things in the rock, because you can only fall that far now. It's like you can always get back to where we are. And I think that's the best way to think about it. So now that we got this thing in GitHub, we can do a lot with it. We can share the repo, we can open source it. What I'm going to do real quick is just actually take this, and I'll show you how to easily pull it down locally. So I'm going to go into my own machine here, and this is where you do need to know, I guess, some terminal commands. But I'm just going to go into the folder that I have here, and I'm going to say git clone that repo that we just created. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull down Wander List. And those are the files on my local file system. I can now open something like Cursor. And Cursor is cool because it has native Git integration built in. So you can see there's the files on my local file system. I can open this folder, and it's going to look kind of familiar. It looks very similar to what we were kind of just looking at. With our files here on the left, we open any of them, and it shows you the code here. You can open a terminal at the bottom and say npm run dev.
So basically, Cursor is IDE.
Sorry?
Is it IDE?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and we need to, I think, go npx build, build, npm.
I think you need first to install the libraries,
Okay.
npme,
Sorry, what is
and npm install.
npme? What is
npm space
I?
Yes. This will create the.
Okay.
You should be able to run it.
Okay. npm run dev. Nice. All right, so now localhost. Let's grab this, open it. Beautiful. So this is a local version. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's running on localhost, which is my laptop, which is the exact same code that we just had running on Bolt, and it's running here. So now, if we could literally go into the woods and develop this thing, although it has the connection to Superbase, so you'd have to like bring the database locally as well. But the point is, we now can work out of Cursor, and there's so much cool stuff you can do with this. They have multiple ways of interacting with it. My favorite is Composer, which is, I think what I just opened there, yeah. So this thing is so cool. Like, it uses Claude Sonnet behind the scenes by default. I saw they just actually added the R0 DeepSeek one, which is super cool because that can do like really extended reasoning. But yeah, from here we can just basically give it requirements, features. Like at this point, we start to get into the weeds. And so what I like to do is go to Claude and say, analyze the code base, tell us what, what are the issues, what do we need to refactor, make some recommendations. And then I have Claude generate some files that we actually store in the root. So I like to create what's called a guidance directory. And I made this up. There's nothing sacred about this, but this is how I do it, is I'll put a folder in the root called guidance. And then I'll put files in there like to-dos, coding styles, like roadmap, screen, like interaction flows, data model, API endpoints, like stuff that you want to have essentially be like guiding the project. You can put in there. You can also put in like postmortems, and like when you solve some complex issue and you get to the root of it, you can then say, Claude, write up like a postmortem on this, and let's have this for our developers so we don't make this mistake again. So we kind of advise. So literally, it's just like anything you might do with a regular team, amass that documentation in a guidance folder, and it's so useful for steering it because all this stuff is just operating off of context. Like these LLMs, just the better, the more like specificity and context you can give it, the better the result. Yeah.
Question. And Claude has the entire code base of the project in the context?
Not right now. So at this point, there's nothing. So what we can do though here is we can reference specific files. So I can say, take a look at, and then I'd say, actually here, this is a trick that I like to do. Let me show you this. And I never remember the name of the exact terminology here. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say, I'm going to go to Claude. Right here, let's just do this. And I'm going to say, what is the syntax of the Linux command that will inspect a file system 3 levels deep and exclude the folder called node modules? It's tree, but I never remember what the exact syntax is. Okay, so we grab this, we go into this terminal window, and we're in the root of this thing, so we're just going to run this, and it's going to give us like this ASCII representation of the file system, and then I'm just going to copy this, and I'll throw this here, and I'll say, I mean, if we're going super long term, this is where we create the guidance folder and we say this is the file system, this is the layout, this is the screens, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just going to kind of cowboy code it and paste it in here and say, here is an ASCII representation of the files in this project. So paste that in there. I'm going to do, let's grab the data model too, because we had that at one point. Where was that?
I think it was the very first.
Yeah, it was way up there. Yep, here it is. Data model design. Relationships.
I don't think you copy everything.
Yeah.
Oh no? Oh, you're right. Well, we can actually just grab this whole thing. It's useful. Let's grab basically all this. Right here. And we're going to throw that into here. And here is more guidance information on this project. Okay, and I'll say I would like to build out the next feature, which involves, I don't know, making a pink elephant dance when you add a new to-do. And so this is agentic. It's mapping out, it's plotting what it's going to do. It will touch multiple files, and you'll start to see the files change here on the left. You see these little dots appearing. So it's actually editing these files in the background. And it gives you the option to accept them. Normally you'd run them and test them, where I'm just going to accept everything. And do you know, does it, like, what it's called when it, like, lazy load or hot load or whatever, when it just...
Load,
Yeah.
But you need to, I think you stop running the server.
Oh, that's right. You're right. So I'm going to make a new terminal, actually. And I'll just say npm run dev.
Yeah, but when you change something on the file system, it will automatically reload.
Yeah. And is that just a feature inherent of Vite, or... Yeah.
Vite, Next.js.
That's cool.
Nowadays, most of the frameworks do that.
That's cool. Okay, so let's go back to our local host. It's loading it right now. And test2@create7.com. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, whoops. Sign in. Sign in. Test. Did I do that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. User already registered. Interesting. Sign in.
Can you try going straight to the homepage?
I think what it hasn't done yet is it hasn't done the flow for a sign in. It only has sign up. So I'm just going to create like test 3. Yeah. So we would need to fix a little bit on there. Allow. Okay, so okay, this implementation will create a cute pink elephant using CSS shapes, make it dance using the CSS animations, show the elephant for 3 seconds whenever a new task is added, blah, blah, blah. Let's just test it. I'm curious if this worked. Is there an elephant? I mean, it looks more like Mickey Mouse to me, but okay, we'll take it. But yeah, I mean, you see how crazy, like, you can just literally make stuff up and this thing will do whatever. APIs are a lot of fun, you guys. There's like all kinds of stuff that's available out there. It's like the creativity is just, it's like endless. You find data sources and you mash things up and come up with ideas. And yeah, and so this is how you start to wire stuff up quickly. What questions do we have at this point? Yeah, JP.
Not actually a question, but now that you mentioned API, a very cool feature of Cursor is that you can plug external documentation in to have context. So if you are building or trying to integrate with an API, you can go straight to the link with the documentation and tell Cursor like I'm building this integration, and it will have all the context it needs to write the code.
Yep. Yeah, let's just look at something. I don't know. Pick an API.
Weather.api.
What is it?
Weather.
Weather.
API, I think it's available.
Weather API.
How low is the context? If the API documentation is very low, what would happen?
You can just plug specific pages, or then I think what Cursor does great is that it breaks the context in smaller windows, so you can process everything.
So it builds rack on itself?
Yeah.
But locally,
Locally in the project, yeah. So if you go to the settings of Cursor, you can see how Cursor is like modeling your project and your database. And you can reindex everything if you need. So if you make a change that will change the structure a lot of the project, usually it's good to do a reindex so Cursor can have a fresher take on the.
So what he's referring to, I don't know if I can blow this up any, maybe not. So JP's referring to, you can add docs. You can see that I've got like Cloudflare, Telnix, Slack, Superbase, Yelp, Next.js, all these docs. And so if we want to add a new one for this like weather API, you just literally paste in the docs, it pulls it in, and then it now is going to have the most up-to-date thing. So this is a problem. Like some of these LLMs, you know, when they're trained, you're now operating on data that was 2 years old, and so it's just not going to be current. But this is a really cool feature of Cursor, because then as we're writing stuff, we can just go in and say, yeah, just add it. So check the docs on weather API and you know, write a routine to pull the forecast for the next week. Yeah, as an option in settings. We're just bastardizing our to-do list at this point, but it's fine. Yeah, and so basically it's indexed the latest versions of the docs. Is super helpful. And this just goes for anything. You can add files, you can add, like this gives you just a little.
So what you've done with this is that it reads the documentation of how you integrate through the API, and then prepares the code for that part to be able to easily read the data that you're requesting.
Well, as far as I know, what it's doing is it's indexing these, it's pulling down those docs and it's storing them. I don't know, I guess it has like a local data store where it's able to easily index all that. So it's basically giving you the up to the minute documentation from the API itself, not what it was trained on 2 years ago or whatever. Yeah. But that is a cool feature. There's another cool thing you can do here. I can just show you. So there's a site called cursor.directory. So there's what these are. You can just go through. So we're doing, what is it, a React app? So let's just grab one. So basically this is like a very distilled version of like super best practices of how to do in all these different languages and frameworks. And it's kind of just like a public repository. People upvote the ones, and so you end up with like the best of the best. And so you can grab this thing and create what's called a cursor rules file. So if I go in the root of the thing and create a cursor rules and then paste that in here, then what this does is it's like that system prompt. It's the exact same thing in Bolt that we did with the knowledge system prompt. And it's basically referring to this before it does anything every time. And this is where you put in coding standards and how to do classes or whatever stylistically that you want to adhere to. It's kind of the culture of your if you want to think of it that way. It's like how you guys operate as a team or whatever. So you can just basically bake this in this cursor rules file, and it will always reference this as it's building stuff. So yeah, it's really useful. Yeah, in the back.
I guess to really hone in the utility of using these tools, how long would it take us to create this prototype without the demonstration, basically? If that makes sense.
Without the demonstration. So if I was just hauling ass and not trying to show you guys anything, I think we probably could have done it in like 15, 20 minutes.
And compared to like developing it, how long would it take?
Oh, to make it like a product? Yeah.
Develop it like using code.
Oh, without these tools, if we were just writing this from scratch. So again, I'm not a developer. I mean, I used to be 25 years ago, but you don't want me to try and develop anything now. I have no idea. Probably Mark would have a better idea. He is a developer.
Yeah, it'd take a few days for a team.
Yeah.
Maybe, you rely on you as well.
Yep.
I mean, usually you have 2 or 3 meetings just to design that first document that we fed into Bolt.
Yeah.
Right? That's 5 hours of meetings in and of itself. So we could have designed 5 of these apps in the time that we create the text.
And having the designers create the design as well.
Oh yes. Yeah.
I'm gonna show another cool thing, just to like kind of switch it up and show just other different stuff that this thing can do. So this is, I have that remarkable tablet. I love this thing. I don't know, has anyone played with this? How do you like it?
I use it every day.
Yeah, it's really pretty incredible. It's basically just like it's like a notepad. It's paper. It feels like you're like drawing on paper, but it's got some cool features where you can actually like share your screen, which is useful for calls. And so I'm just gonna share my screen here. I figured out how to load all my Kindle books in there. So Kindle books by default are like DRM'd, but there's like this cool thing called Calibre, and you can jailbreak your Kindle books basically. So I love like 300 Kindle books now loaded on this thing, which is cool. But here we go. I'm just gonna, like if we wanted to sketch, I don't know, what feature do we want? Let's come up with something wacky.
Lion chasing the elephant.
A lion chasing the elephant? Okay. So I'm gonna make it, let's make a feature to design your lion. So we've got, let's look at it real quick. So we got over here, wander, task, and we got tasks, and calendar, and categories, settings, and I want to do something, I don't know, let's say, let's say create, I don't know, lion, I don't know, this is, and over here it should, freaking terrible lion. And I don't know, maybe down here a prompt to describe our line. Let's do this. And then modify line. So I don't know, this is just super quick and dirty. I don't know what we're doing actually. But I'm just gonna give it this. Oh, you didn't actually, okay. So I'm just gonna, sorry, I thought it was, you were seeing what I was drawing. So I'm just gonna give it this thing. I'm gonna take a quick screenshot. And I like to use V0 for designing screens. So let's go to that. Okay, and I'm just gonna say, can you create a screen for this using Tailwind CSS and ShadCN UI and try as much as possible to approximate this hand-drawn screen using the screenshot that I'm gonna give you. Let's see. Okay, and I'm just going to upload these. And that's the logo. Okay, so these are the two. Create a screen annotation so it matches the hand-drawn mockup shortly. So that implements what you see in the hand-drawn mockup, but in the exact style of the screenshot. So let's just see what it comes back with. But you can literally design entire websites, entire applications, just hand-drawn, or like go to a whiteboard, and that's a really cool way to design when you have multiple people giving input. Whiteboard it all out, take photos, upload, boom, it creates all the code for you.
Why would you need both if you already have cursor?
You don't. Bolt, like I say, like Bolt is good for broad strokes. It's really fast. It's really like gives you quick and dirty prototype, high level. You saw you can just literally go to like design it and then deploy to Netlify. Like in the course of a meeting, you could literally be sitting there and having input and be typing it in and then deploy it and be like, guys, does this work? You know, like it's that level of speed. Whereas Cursor, it's running locally, it's more involved, it's more powerful, more of a learning curve, and it's what you use to basically build like a product long term. So I think into the gentleman in the back's question around like when do you switch or what do you use for what, it's squishy, it's not, I don't think there's necessarily a right answer, but I think like a fine workflow is to start in Bolt, get a high level picture of it, and then bring it into Cursor and refine it there.
Would it be suboptimal for something serious you want to build because the infrastructure that Bolt came up with would not be optimal when you put it in Cursor, right?
Yeah, it can be, but you can also just refactor, just say, Claude, take a look at this code base and like, let's fix it up. We need to shore this up, look for security problems, look for scalability issues. And Claude is that good. It's really crazy of how good it is. But okay, so you can see that it just generated us this interface, which is pretty darn close. It's not exact, right? It's slightly different. But if we didn't have this and we're starting from scratch and we can just, you know, you can screenshot any website. Like if you see a site that you like, just screenshot it, upload it, and be like, I kind of like this, but I want that different, and you know, use my logo, and it's bananas. This is not an image. This is like CSS. So yeah, anyways, I just wanted to show you that you can use hand-drawn designs and just submit a series of them and link it together. And that also, you don't even have to like make the application functionality work. That's another way to do this stuff, is you can like just literally prototype the screens and then like link them together, just link to the screens. Any other questions? We got 15 minutes before we break.
About backend, I mean, we developed some application on React, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think it's front-end framework,
Mm-hmm.
but somehow now it interacts directly to database. I think it's not secure or kind of like that. There should be some backend between database and React.
So it is talking to the database. Like, we're loading in tasks and it's storing it in the database now. You're right. Like we need to clean things up. We need to, like, you saw the sign in didn't work properly. Like the sign up is working, but the sign in isn't. So it's a matter of stepping through it and testing things and fixing what's broken. But I don't think there's it's not like a quantum leap of stuff we need to do. It's incremental fixes to what's there, I think.
Sean, using Superbase, one of the advantages is that if you use authentication and database of Superbase, the permissions part is linked. If you go there to the auth policies on the top of the table,
Okay.
right side,
Yeah.
can you click auth the authentication policies? No, on the top.
Oh, here we go. This.
So here you can control who has access to which data, and you can say that a user can only load their tasks, and Bolt generated all of this automatically.
But it only worked
With Superbase.
Superbase.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I've written our stuff where I just write a users table. I didn't know about this, and I guess there's something to be said for having it be portable. Like ours, we can rip it and move it if we really wanted to. Whereas I guess you'd kind of have to refactor if it's using native like Superbase only functionality. But that is super cool that it has that built in.
Superbase is open source as well, and yeah, it's built mostly on top of Postgres, the database. So
Okay.
everything can be self-hosted as well.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Superbase is open source.
It's open source. Yeah.
Wow, that's very cool. That's super cool. Yeah, because I was thinking we were gonna.
Locally Superbase if you want. You don't need to host it.
Man, I did not know that. That's I learned something very useful tonight. That's cool.
You can view your own version and you can host it in
Yeah.
US. Cost-wise,
Cost-wise, the free plan is very good. It scales really well. So we always use Superbase for our backend for the products, and we only had to upgrade once because we use a RAG application. It's more like heavy on data, but the rest of the apps all on the free plan. So
Very cool. It's awesome. Yeah.
Well, if you start from absolute zero, I'm in totally different industries,
Yep.
Considering the way everything is moving, what do you think I should be trying to learn?
Trying to learn.
Yeah, is there a point in trying to learn to code anymore?
I personally wouldn't learn to code at this point. I would learn conceptually about like what are the pieces, like how does programming work. Like there's a great book. Let me see if I can find it. A book that I had a long time ago is like called like Object-Oriented Programming for Managers, where it wasn't trying to teach you the syntax, it was trying to teach you how to think about stuff. And I think that's the right level to zoom into. I think it's a mistake at this point to invest energy in learning the syntax. Like it's not going to hurt you, but it's just not the greatest use of your time. I think if I were starting out right now, I would just get super proficient with using tools like this to build stuff and just go get your hands dirty. Kind of the way Frank is just like, what song do you want to learn? Like go just try to build stuff. And when you run into problems, then use the LLMs to work through them. And then you'll start to be like, oh, I got to learn source control. What's that? And then you'll start to like figure out, okay, so I can take this little like half-day course on Udemy and now I'll understand how to use Git and what that is, or terminal syntax and the basic Linux commands that I need to know. So like all this stuff will just emerge by necessity at some point, rather than you trying to like go learn 1,000 things before you can do anything useful.
Like when you have a problem and if the model starts hallucinating, which is not uncommon, and you don't know how to code, you will find yourself lost, right?
Yeah. So
the LLM will be throwing errors at you over and over, and you will have no idea what to do about it.
So when it gets stuck in loops like that, I find it useful. That's when it's helpful to go to a different system like Claude and to restate the problem, to show what you've tried, give it as much context as possible.
That's the thing. If you don't understand coding, how can you know what the problem is?
I mean, you can just
You just-
dump everything to OpenAI or to Claude.
Yeah.
You will get the context.
Yeah, the errors are usually there in logs.
I think what cool feature from Bolt and cursor is that, can you go back to Bolt?
Yeah.
To one of the first messages.
Yep.
The end of the message from the assistant. So every time there's a new iteration of the code, these agents create a checkpoint.
Oh yeah.
So if anything goes wrong and you start to go by the rabbit hole, you can always like restore to another checkpoint where everything was working and try again on a different approach, or yeah, you can
Yep.
roll back to that point.
Yeah, there's multiple ways. Like that's a super useful thing as you're developing, but also again, like anytime you get to a point where you're like pretty happy, everything works, I just highly recommend just check it into Git, because then that's your thing in the rock where you know you can't fall further than that. And I've also done projects where it's like I made a bunch of progress and I just kind of keep powering through and then completely screw it up. And it's just like you want to cry because you then have to roll it all the way back. If there's nothing like this where you can just conveniently step it back to pre-problem, then it's like crap. The last check-in we had in Git has like missing 5 features, so now we have to start all over from there. Don't do that. Yeah.
What about technical debt? So you are tolerating a very high degree of uncertainty within your organization. So it will accumulate over time. It will cascade. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I guess my attitude is like, if I can get to revenue and I can get to users and like a working application and revenue, ideally, then I'll tolerate some level of technical debt, even if I don't fully understand what's going on here. This is where it's funny, like posting online and like seeing some of the comments on these YouTube videos where they're showing how to do this stuff. There's a lot of vitriol from developers, like people who have spent like a career learning how to do what they do. And it's not to trivialize what they know. Like I have deep respect for developers, but when you start to see that you can get like 80% of the result and like, yeah, okay, fine, I don't understand all the technical details of what's happening behind the scenes. Whoa, sorry. But like I can get the result and then go hire a developer. If I can get to revenue, then I can kind of paper over this issue down the road. So and that's my attitude is like, yeah, I'll put up with some technical debt in the short term for the sake of like not having to hire a huge dev team and like potentially build the wrong thing and be able to iterate faster. Like, hell yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Can you go back to your slides to take a photo from the app from this one?
From this? Yeah. Cool. So what I'm going to do, I'll throw like these slides, I'll throw a link to the source if anyone wants to play with it. I don't know that this particular one was like interesting enough where we take this forward, but there's a group of us that meet. Basically, like, guys, my vision here is help people democratize, like get more people using this stuff. So we're going to do a pair of events going forward. Nocode Lisboa, which is this, will just be kind of a monthly thing where we help people work through this stuff. But then we also did this other thing called Open Startup. So let me just show you what that is. And the vision here is that this is like the for-profit branch of a nonprofit initiative that I started called Problematic. Stone Soup is the protocol. This is like one giant bubble application that's running all this. But this is multi-tenant. We can host all these communities now, 351 startups, Polylog, Open Startup, Problematic, Hatch. So we have all these communities running on here and with different windows into the different projects and problems and whatnot. But these are the ones that are actual viable startup ideas. This is that Slackbot application that I mentioned for helping people meet up for lunch. But there's a group of us that's just going to meet monthly and take these forward. And what's cool is like people can develop fractional ownership in a startup. It's like a way where you don't have to be committed. You literally just work on whatever aspect you want to work on. All the tasks are shown here. They're coded by skill so that when you create a profile, if you're logged in, you can just say this button, who needs me? And it'll apply these filter and it'll basically filter this list down to the ones that you can work on. And then you can go do it. And let's just like, I don't know, let's take this one, see what it is. Oh, and this is something cool I've started doing. So like, this is just literally copy pasted out of the to-do file that's in the GitHub repo for this project. And so it's a set of stuff where if you complete this, it wins you 200 tokens of this project. This one is actually denominated in USD, so this one's cash. But some of these are actual tokens in the project where you earn ownership of that project. And if these turn into startups, like what this gives us the ability to do is basically have like a mini, like a cap table before we have a cap table. This tracks the leaderboard and who's done what and all the contributions and all that. And then if and when we ever go to raise money for something, this just translates, it becomes the cap table of the project. And so you're issued shares at that point. So this is kind of a big experiment. I've had this vision for a while, but it's, you know, iterating, dialing it in closer and closer each time. So yeah, if you want to be a part of that initiative, it's like the second Saturday of the month. They'll be listed here in the events on openstartup.community. And you can see that this is just like right now, this is aggregating the Nocode Lisboa events, problematic, and all of these are just accumulating at once. We'll probably filter them at some point. But yeah, this, if you want to be involved in that, I mean, there's no better way to learn related disciplines and like new skills than just work on real stuff. It's kind of a fun way to spend a Saturday. So yeah, so if there's no other questions, you guys, the Telegram group, I'll leave that up for anyone who wants to join. This will have, that QR code will get you in there, and then I'll share the slides and I'll share the GitHub repo, and thank you guys for coming. Yeah. There was actually one question in the back, it looked like. What?
Maybe I just joined the conversation, so maybe it's like out of the context. But I was wondering about the website. What's the name? Yeah, the one, the Vault one. But I mean, where are like? I mean, what's about the resources? I mean, which is the?
Yeah, so I'll throw.
The platform, the storage, the.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna copy that link and I'm gonna put this in the Telegram group. And I've made it so you can look back, unlike WhatsApp where you can't see what happened before you. I've set this group so you can actually see the full history. So that's now in there. I'll put the GitHub repo in there. I'll put links to Open Startup and Nocode Lisboa and all these resources that I talked about. That'll be all in there. Yeah. Cool. Well, feel free to stick around. You guys don't have to leave, but I think this concludes it. And yeah, we'll make this a monthly thing. You can just, the meetup will always have it, and our site will always have it. Meetup, actually, I'm not too happy with them. They tripled prices. I don't know if anyone else is an organizer. I actually boycotted it, and then I realized they have our community hostage. So I kind of like, someone else took it over, and I basically said, hey man, can you make me a co-organizer? But super frustrating that Meetup tripled prices without any explanation. From like 45 to like 145 or something. It's crazy.
You should cancel it, and then it usually goes much cheaper. Like if you cancel it, everyone would just be good.
Oh, like a downsell?
Well, it always like it's 50 off.
I was emailing with their support, just being like, guys, that's an egregious price increase. Like, I can understand like a 20% increase, but like a 300%, that's crazy. Anyways, cool. All right. Well, I hope it was useful. Feel free to stick around. Happy to answer questions. Like, yeah. Cheers. Yeah, cheers. Oh, yeah.